Welcome back to the Spiritual Uplevel Podcast. I'm your host, Jeri Cristine, and today I finally get to interview Hillary Hepp, who I connected with about a year ago on social media and just got to meet face to face for the first time. So, welcome, Hillary. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I am going to read your bio because it is beautiful. And I don't want to miss anything because you do a lot of fun things. So, everybody, meet Hillary Hepp, a sustainable developer, wellness coach, yoga teacher, and heart centered entrepreneur who walked away from a high stress corporate career to create a life rooted in purpose, community, and connection to nature. As the founder of Soul Fit Green Build and Soul Fit Wellness, Hillary blends sustainable living with holistic health, helping others break free from societal conditioning and step into a more aligned way of being. Her journey from burnout to balance, sounds like mine, has been one of deep transformation, leading her to explore communal models of living, the power of mindset shifts, and what it truly means to live from the heart. Whether she's developing affordable housing, leading retreats, or guiding people on the yoga mat, Hillary is passionate about building spaces, both physical and emotional, where people can thrive. Hillary, that is so beautiful. And I have so many questions for you today.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, like we were talking about off camera, your background, explain what your background is. What was the corporate career that you came from?
Yeah, a civil engineer.
Okay. So
So
you're doing civil engineering. I'm eh, on a kind of similar path, but other career with real estate development investment. And then what happened to make you have that mindset shift to want to do stuff that's more sustainable and communal, and tell us
yeah.
about that journey.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So as a civil engineer, I engineer the land. So I did land development for many years. And even though I did it for many years, it never really felt super aligned with me. I worked on a lot of projects, like industrial type projects. UPS was one of my main clients. Dollar stores, gas stations, shopping centers, things like that. And it never really felt in full alignment, but it took me some time to really realize that it wasn't the engineering that was not alignment, it was the types of projects I was working on. And I just got to a point where I no longer wanted to be part of feeding into the consumerism. And but it actually took me going through some health issues before I realized that I was living so far out of alignment. So at age 35, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Um, I was in a very high state of stress for too long, working in a corporate career that caused me stress, that it was out of alignment. Really, working too many hours a week. And then also on the weekends to reduce my stress, I was drinking heavily and really just kind of numbing myself out. And it caught up with me. I ended up just going in for my annual checkup, and my gynecologist found a lump and found out I had very early stages, stage 1B breast cancer. But because of some genetic mutations, they talked me right into, having a full bilateral mastectomy and oophorectomy. And so I went through the Western whole process of fighting cancer. Went through chemotherapy, pretty tough treatments, and had surgery, 6 surgeries in a year. And I just, through all that process, really realized there must be a better way. There must be a better way to heal. And that between that and then realizing, how out of alignment the engineering work I was doing just made me, I got to my breaking point, was just like, I can't do this anymore. So I left my corporate career. I went back to school to become a health coach. I went to Institute for Integrative Nutrition and have just learned a lot on my own healing journey. And through that program, it's a really wonderful program. It's a very holistic program. And just really came to the point where, I realized I don't need to be working in some corporate career that just causes me stress. And it's taken a little bit of time and a lot of learning, but I'm, now in a position to where back using my engineering for bringing communities and affordable housing and things that I'm passionate about.
That's awesome. That's very similar to my path. When I was 35, I got diagnosed with early menopause and went through years of, same Western medicine and trying to figure it out, and always constantly battling my hormones, and realized that it was the stress.
Yeah.
I remember when I was young and people would say, stress is a killer. I'm like, whatever. I have so much energy. I'm going to build all these things. And it really is so true, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's, I want to spend some time on what you're doing career-wise, but let's transition into your health. So you went through this holistic health journey or program and learned so much. And what are you doing with that now? Because I know that um, you participate in several retreats per year, many international that look amazing. And tell us about what you do there. What's your role?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. My health, going through my health journey really, one day, it was actually early 2022. I just woke up one morning and I said, enough is enough. I'm going to really start living my life. Up until this, I had been doing a lot of personal development and had already been through a lot of natural healing studies and things like that on my own. But I just woke up one day and I said, I've been wanting to go on a yoga retreat for a long time. I'm going to book one today. And so I got online, and it was just that decision, right? That decision of saying yes to myself and to something that I had wanted to do for a long time. That was when I actually found Wholesome Alchemy. My great teacher and one of my best friends now, Courtney Bowman, she leads a movement called Wholesome Alchemy that is basically a transformational yoga retreats all over the world. But we've really just formed this beautiful, amazing community, because most of her retreats, 50% or more, are repeat attendees. So what she's really a master at is like cultivating and creating this safe space so that we can just be vulnerable. And that's what happened on my very first retreat. It was the first time I can remember ever feeling safe to just be and to share my emotions. And so my heart just cracked wide open, and it felt so good that I wanted to just keep doing it. And at that retreat, the kitchen is my favorite room. I love to feed people. I have a lot of experience working in restaurants, back in my, earlier through college and even all through my 20s. And I love to feed people and nourish people. And so that very first retreat, the food wasn't very good. And I said to Courtney, I said, I would love to prepare the meals at one of your retreats, because I think I could do way better than this. And so she gave me a shot, and that was a little over 3 years ago. And that very first retreat, it really was like the first time I really remember feeling super proud of myself, because it was something that I was sharing. It was gifts I was sharing from my heart, because now my heart was open, right? And I was able to feel what was in there and share something from my heart. And I just felt so proud of myself. And it was really the first time I really remember feeling that way. And now I've catered, I think 15 or 20 retreats in the past 3 years, catered or attended. And just by word of mouth, so I cater all of Courtney's domestic retreats and then many other retreats as well, for other facilitators, just by word of mouth, because it's when you're truly sharing something from your heart, you don't have to market it. It's just it's your special gift. And so that's kind of, retreats have just become such a big part of my life. And I've traveled all over the world with Courtney and our community, attending them and catering them. And I'm facilitating my first retreat this later this summer as well, that I'm really excited about.
That's awesome. So when you went from the corporate job, through this healing process, found your passion for food, that comes, like you said, comes from your heart. And now you're also utilizing your engineering skills. So, so tell us what you're doing with that, and like how did you balance all of those three things? Because I know a lot of my listeners and myself included, like going from that high stress job, but that's what you know. And then you find this healing and like your heart cracks wide open. And a lot of times you come home from that experience and you just want to quit and move into this other area. And I've noticed in my own life, like I kind of did that. And then, God is calling me back like, okay, like now that you're more feminine, now that you're softer, now that you're coming from your heart space, let's utilize all of your skills. So
Yeah.
how have you blended those things?
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting journey to get to the balance, right? To where I am now. I initially started out just doing health coaching, and I was actually very big into CBD. So I was selling CBD, and I tried so many different things to make that path work, right? And in that whole process, and it was just this ongoing practice of like learning to listen to my heart and what was inside of me and what let me up versus what was like something I should do, right? And it's just learning how to like listen to that. And it's a practice, especially when we're programmed for so many years to do the things we're supposed to be doing, right? Um, but my whole health coaching journey it brought me after catering a few retreats, a lot of people were asking, I want to eat your food all the time. Can so I started this weekly meal delivery service. And in this process, um, it was going well. I kept getting more and more clients, but what I discovered was I couldn't find enough healthy food that I felt good about feeding people. The food that's on our grocery shelves is an average of 17 days old. It comes from thousands of miles away. By the time it even gets to us, it's lost a lot of its nutritional value. So I made the decision, if I'm going to continue this, I'm going to buy as much food as I can from local farmers and prepare my meals that way. But what I found was there's not enough local farms, right? So that brought me to the 15th Street Farm, and I worked with them for about a year, helping them get their kitchen. They have a community kitchen on site where they're bringing education and farm to table events. It's a really, really amazing project. But that's what brought me to really realizing like we have a bigger need here. In order for me to be able to prepare food that I feel good about nourishing people with, we need to have more healthy food. And so that brought me to my current client, who is very much in alignment with my values. And now we're working on projects bringing, I kind of realized in that process that I'm not meant to just work on one farm. I'm meant to bring many more farms. And it actually happened to be that the owner of the 15th Street Farm property is bringing affordable housing type and community projects. And so that's just like taking those steps and like following your heart and saying yes. The door is just continuously open, and it's like you can have a vision of where you want to go, but you kind of have to let go of the how, and like how is this going to look and how is it going to happen? Because once you're just open to it, they just start to fall in place. And so I think, really part of my purpose with helping the 15th Street Farm was to bring me to this client that I'm now working with, and we're bringing projects where we're incorporating farms right into the design. And so the residents
Into
of
the housing, that like the planned development community, is that what you mean? Okay.
yeah, they're affordable housing. We have a couple different types. We have like micro unit type, and we have an eco village type. And so then there's like a medium in between type too, but it's all affordable housing. And then it has like a farm and community component built right into it.
Wow. Wow. When you say affordable housing, does that mean like government subsidized or just like the rents or the price point is low?
The price point is lower. It's not going to be like there's definitely kind of a bad name put on affordable housing right now that you think it's like it's going to be like Section 8 or in a rough neighborhood, or it's going to be somewhere you're not going to want to live. But we're changing that. Like we're changing that to where they're going to be very sustainable, very green, very beautiful places to live. But they're going to be smaller spaces, right? It's not going to be large. They're going to be kind of like micro units, like 300 to 500 square feet. So your living space is small, but then there's going to be community spaces in the buildings that you can like in one of the buildings, we're having a community kitchen. So if you want to have your friends over for dinner, you're not going to really have space in your studio, your small apartment to have that. So there's going to be space in the building for you to prepare a larger meal and have a larger table so you can invite your friends over. So things like that will be incorporated. There's going to be wellness things incorporated, like a sauna and cold plunge right into the building for the residents to use. It's also going to include, when you have a smaller living space like that, you might not have space to keep a kayak or a paddleboard or an e-bike. And so there'll be all of those items available for you to reserve so that you don't need to have your own. You can reserve it when you want to go out and use it. So a lot of different, it's very future forward thinking, things like that to really, so the residents are more of a community, instead of, all the, like, there's going to be spaces in the buildings that can be shared by the residents.
I remember seeing a project like this like 10 years ago and thinking that was so fascinating. And then I've never seen any actually built. And just to clarify for our listeners, you're in St. Petersburg, Florida, right? So
Correct.
are all these projects in St. Petersburg area?
The first three that we're working on that are in design phase right now, are all in the St. Pete area, but we're looking at properties all over Florida. The first eco village we're working on is in Gainesville, actually.
Okay.
But I'm working, as soon as we hop off the call, I'm going to be working on 2 site plans for 2 sites in Tampa. So we have sites in Orlando, down in Fort Myers, Lakeland. So kind of all over Florida, we're working, but the first 3 are here in St. Pete.
And then, uh, so because I'm a real estate investor and realtor broker, I have some detailed questions. So I hope you don't mind, but like one of my questions is, who is your target market for these communities?
Yeah, I would kind of say it's the target market are people like me, people that are, I would say in their like mid-20s to mid-50s. I mean, age doesn't really matter, but people that are just working and want to have more of a community life. So, workforce housing, um, couples could live in the units too. It's not just targeted for singles.
Do you have spaces for families?
Some of our projects will, like the Eco Village for sure, there'll be space for families. And some of the sites where they're larger, there'll be larger units. But
Okay.
even these first 3 in St. Pete, we do have a couple, like 2-1 units. So smaller families could go in them. But yeah, so some of the projects for sure will be family oriented. The Eco Village that we're working at, we want to have space for farm worker housing, workforce housing. The way the units are going to be built are, well, currently we're still in the process with the city on all the design, but currently it's there'll be like a single family home with a attached dwelling unit that could be on its own for like a family member. So maybe it's like an elderly family member or a student, right? So they have their own living space, but they're still connected. So we definitely want to have space for our elderly, so that we can take care of each other when we
Yeah,
get to that point in life.
that's beautiful. With it being so communal, and maybe this is really limited thinking question, and I feel my ego coming up and saying, but you have to take care of yourself. Like with it being so communal, is there any concern about like safety and what people are part of this community?
Well, I think that's a great question. And I think that we're moving, things are shifting here and things are moving. And I think the people that are going to be drawn to this type of this housing are going to be more like-minded, and it's going to
Mhm.
be safe. And you will
Yeah,
have your own private space, right? That's going to be fully locked and things like that. So it's you can kind of choose, right? Like how much involved do you want to get with the community? But I really feel, and I can see it and feel it, that things are starting to shift, and there's more and more people that are becoming like-minded like this, that they want to live this way. I actually have a long list of people that are ready to move into the eco village. So um
cool.
yeah, I think it takes trust and deconditioning and, like you said, mindset work. And I think the more and more people that continue to do that work, the less we're gonna have to worry about those types of things.
I can see that. I mean, even in the homes that we own, or we have a property that we rent from our investment company, we Airbnb, like we share our space all the time. Even in the house we live in, we have a guest suite that we invite other people into all the time. And it's been actually a really great experience. And a lot of people around us are like, how do you like, why do you let people in your house? You know, like it's been really amazing, actually. We've met really incredible people from all over the world. So that's definitely, I think, a mindset set shift. And that leads me to my next question. Again, being an investor and working with so many investors over the years, you know, real estate investment is really geared towards making money,
Yeah.
right? As much money as you can. And it has a deserved reputation for that. And like, I always think, how do you move from that space, that mindset? How do you transition your business into something that is more future forward, sustainable, communal? Is there profit in it? Like, is there a lead that other people, you know, that can help pull people into that space?
Yeah, that's a question I feel like we could spend days talking about.
True, yeah.
It's I know for myself, I very clearly can see a world where it's not money driven. Like where
Yeah,
we're giving, we're sharing from our hearts. And if everybody was just sharing their gifts from their hearts, we would have everything we need because everybody's different. Everybody wants different things.
yeah,
And so since I can very clearly feel and see that world, let me tell you, it's been a bit of a challenge to be in this one, right? This money driven world. Thankfully now, I've really, it's taken me some time, but I figured out, I've done a lot of work on my money mindset, and um, I've, I've taken programs, and I've had therapists, and I've had, a lot of work to allow myself, because it's so different in your mind to receive money like as an employee, right? Like you can do the same work that an employee hired you for, but when you go do that work on your own, it's like this whole different, it's a
yeah,
whole different world, right? And you have to learn how to manage yourself. There's no time management, it's managing yourself, right? Like learning how to manage yourself. And it just takes practice, and it takes dedication, and mindset work is the biggest thing. And once you can learn that money is just energy and that you are worthy to receive the energy that you're putting out, then the money starts to flow, because money is just energy.
yeah,
Um, but it takes time to get there. And I think that it's just going to continue, like when you're living fully in alignment, sharing from your heart, then abundance comes to you. And so sometimes it takes time to reprogram and decondition and let go of all those other layers that have been placed on top of you. But once you get to that point, and highly recommend getting the support you need, right, to get there, because it's a practice, and it takes time and it takes work, but it's it's really beautiful on the other side when you can learn how to live in alignment and share your gifts so that abundance is just coming to you.
yeah. I've been definitely in that process most of my life. I used to live completely money driven. It was my number one thing for so many years. And, you know, I could talk about that for days too. You know, that came from insecurity, you know, housing, money insecurity as a child, right? Have had that shift over the last few years, especially significantly in the last couple of years. And it's amazing when you get there, because just there's always money. It just is. Like, I don't know what I did to create money today. However, I was able to pay for my groceries, right? But like, thinking from the investor's perspective, like your client that you're working on these with now, are they like a nonprofit organization? Is this their way of giving back because they have so much money? Or I can think of like a lot of investors who, for example, have traditional apartment buildings that might be interested in something like this, but they would be shifting like a lot of money to something different. And if they're just kind of beginning this journey, like, what is there to entice them? Because I can see the world that you're talking about. I see that a lot in my meditations. And I also see a lot of the current structures in our world crumbling. I know something that you like to talk about is the matrix, and I want to ask you some questions about that in a minute, but s- like how is this shift going to happen over to
Yeah, I don't know the how, I don't always know so clearly, but I do feel it and I see it happening. And I'm grateful to be working with a client who is not money driven. Obviously, yes, like these developments need to make money, right? Because that's still the world we're in. But I'm working with a team who is open to spending more money up front to bring the community components, to bring the sustainable components, to bring the green living components into these projects to make a little bit less on the back end, right? That's what we need more of, are developers that care about this environment, that care about the type of projects they're bringing and building. We have too many concrete jungle projects, and
yeah.
um, and it's gonna take changes on a systematic and political level. Um, you know, we're deep in it right now for this project in Gainesville, where we created this beautiful site plan, this eco village that it's like pedestrian access only in the middle. It's a farm with housing built around it, right? And you can imagine like the animals are just like the chickens are just running free, and there's gardens and produce food growing everywhere. And we have like a similar concept of the 15th Street Farm, where there's a community kitchen where we can hold events to bring education and bring the community together. Um, we took that to the city of Gainesville, and they're like, this project's beautiful. We want this in our city, but basically you can't do any of this. Like, you can't have a home that doesn't have vehicular access to it. You have to have vehicular access to all the homes. What if there's a fire? But if you look at the statistics, you know how many people die in a fire each year? Very few, like a couple hundred, right? But do you know how many people are so unhappy, they're stressed out, they're sick because they're living so disconnected from everything, right? So it's
Everybody.
like, we need to bring some common sense here and make some changes to really be able to help people thrive instead of keeping them in the survival mode.
I can imagine even that, like the issues that some communities would have with like the food. In Omaha, I got produce from um, a farm that was in the town, and they're all organic, and it was amazing. But she told me one day that she had to deny a whole shipment of tomatoes because the lady showed herself holding a tomato in her hand with no gloves on. And so, because of the rules in that community, she could not sell those because they were handled with no gloves on. Like, it's like some of the rules are so insanely ridiculous. There's no common sense.
Yeah, we've
So,
become so overregulated that we can't even
yeah,
build something that makes sense on our property anymore.
yeah,
It's gonna take some time to shift things, and it's gonna take people like myself and my client that are very much activists, that are like willing to do the work to make these changes. But we're just going to keep going back to that city, until we can get at least as close as we want to the development. It was so interesting because my client had me then put a site plan together that was meeting code, like all meeting code, the whole plan. And what came out of it was the exact single family development that we already have, right?
yeah,
Like your neighborhood with all the sites, all the houses are the same. You have all this big infrastructure that costs so much money. And, then you talk about renewable energy too. We have this access to these renewable energy sources now, but the problem is the jurisdictions aren't giving you incentives to bring it in because they can't make money off of it, right? And so there's not too many developers that are going to pay all this money to bring this renewable energy in when they're not getting any incentives or financial break for doing it, right? And so
yeah.
there's like this disconnect, and we need to figure out how to bridge this gap. But we're going to keep working on it until we do. So
Well, I'm going to believe that some of our listeners are the exact people that we need in the government, and investors and developers who are willing to do projects like this, because I know they're out there.
yeah,
And it's the change that we need. And it's the change that I believe will happen. And clearly you believe will happen as well.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see some of your projects and just keep me in mind because I've got a whole community of people who who are along these lines that will want to do something like this. Um, let's go back to the matrix. Tell me about the point in time at which you realized we live in a matrix.
Yeah, I don't know if there was a specific point. I think this was a gradual awareness realization for me. Um, it was like I felt it for forever. I feel like I felt it inside me forever, but I didn't have the tools or the resources to get on the other side of it for a long time. And I actually, you know, being in that world where, you have to go to college and get the degree and then do the best you can in that field, right? It actually um, I never really loved what I was doing with the engineering, but because of that, like I had so much drive to like do the best in my field. So I, went through multiple schoolings. I have multiple degrees, and I went through taking this test 4 times to become a PE, and basically just really stressed myself out to doing something that wasn't even alignment because that's what I should do. Right. And I got very far doing all of that, but I think it was more of a gradual awareness for me. But I do know that I did get to my breaking point, right? Like I finally got to my breaking point. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And I just ended up like just quitting my job without a plan in place. So I don't recommend anybody doing that, right? Like it'd be much smoother to have a plan in place and have the support and the resources and the tools you already need. But I definitely learned a lot in that journey. And just it was right around the time actually when I did my first retreat, and the retreat was all about, it's called Authentic Living and Embodiment. So it's all about mindset and deconditioning. And so it was like perfect timing for me to, I opened up to it, and then it was like I had the support and the resources I needed. And through all of that was really kind of what gave me the courage to leave my corporate job and just trust that I'll be okay.
Yeah.
But
And I agree with
uh,
you. I don't recommend anybody just leave what they're doing. It really shakes stuff up and it can be really disconcerting. However, once you start to realize it, it's so hard to continue in it, right? Like,
yes,
um, I don't know, like even I just every now and then will turn on TV, like, I have my mindfulness stuff that I'll watch once in a while. But if I ever flip through like Netflix, I'm like, oh my gosh, like why are people putting this stuff in their brain? And that's just one avenue of it. But when you start to realize it, it becomes really difficult to kind of live in it. And
yeah,
yet, those of us who are waking up to it, have woke up to it, need to live in the world so that we can kind of be the guiding light, right? Out of it.
yeah. It's I'll share, all these retreats. I've been all over the world on retreats the past few years. So I've traveled to many different countries. And each time I come back, it's typically this motivation, because in most other countries that people are living more connected, right? They're living connected to nature, they're living connected to each other, they're living connected to spirit and their hearts, in a lot of other countries that I've been to. And when I come back from those places, I just have like this motivation and this fire to like do something to make changes here, right? Because I feel how I can feel it. So I feel like I've felt it since I was very young to be able to live this way. I remember sharing with my friends when I was young, when we grow up and we get older, let's just all like have houses on the same property and live together. And they're like, oh, what? You mean like a cult? And I'm like, no, not like a cult. It's like I could always like feel it so deeply. And each time I come home from a retreat now, I'm so motivated to make the changes here. And I don't know how that looks necessarily fully, right? Like I'm just continuing to take steps towards it. And as long as I'm taking steps towards it, I feel good. Like I feel like I can keep going. But I was just in Africa for 2 weeks for retreat, and then we did safari. And this was really the first time I came home, and I just felt this like overwhelming sadness. Because Africa, they say it's our motherland, totally our motherland. Like you can just feel the heart of the planet. Like you can feel the heart of the people, and you're so connected to nature, and just like the magic of all those animals. And so it was a rough re-entry for me coming back from Africa. And I'm thankful for my tools and my community and my therapist, because they helped me move some of that sadness, and it's now turned back into motivation again. But um, if you don't have that support, you can really get stuck in that sadness. And I'm grateful to be able to have the tools to learn how to move it, and happy that I'm back in my motivated state.
What are some of the tools that you recommend for people in everyday life to start being like more connected to their heart and to nature?
Yeah. The number one tool we have to connect with is our breath. And it sounds so simple, but just even taking a few pauses throughout the day and taking a few deep breaths will help you so much. I feel like so many of us are living in this, our nervous systems are out of balance. We're living in this fight or flight mode. I know for me, I was living in this fight or flight mode for many years. And I mean, I remember literally, because I was working so many hours, I was so stressed out, and I was studying for this big test, right, to get my PE. And I remember literally sitting there thinking, I'm gonna make myself sick because I'm just overdoing it. But I was so caught up in it, I couldn't stop. And, I know that a big part of that was my cancer diagnosis was because my body was just in a fight or flight for so long. And so it's learning how to regulate our nervous system. Some of my tools that I practice daily, I wake up every morning and I go straight to my yoga mat. Yoga for me is not just an exercise, it's really become a way of life. And yoga for me is the union, it's the connection. So it's learning how to connect with ourselves through our breath and through presence and through intention. It's learning how to connect to Great Spirit. It's learning how to connect with each other and nature. So for me, it's more about union and connection. And so that's what I practice first thing every morning. And then I typically will just do a light meditation. And I do gratitude practice every day. I journal. Practices, that morning routine, and then I'll exercise. I'll typically go for a bike ride or a walk and get out in the sun. Like that's really important too. Get a little bit of sun and nature time in, but it's my favorite time of the day because it's my me time, right? It's my time to just be with myself and really spoil myself every day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hillary, what are you doing that you're most excited about right now? Like, what's the thing that you're the most passionate about right now?
Oh, I'm grateful to say that I have a lot of things I'm excited about right now. I would say, because my most favorite thing to do is to feed and nourish people, I think I'm most excited about bringing projects into fruition that have gardens designed right into the plan. Because I think that getting back to growing our own food is going to solve so many problems. It's going to remind people of that connection. It's a great way to remind people of that connection. It's a great way to bring community together. Yeah. I'm also super excited about the retreat that my partner Gray and she's an Ayurvedic practitioner and clinical herbalist. We're offering a retreat at an herb farm that I worked at last summer in Montana. And just to be like, it was such an amazing experience that I wanted to share it. So we created a whole retreat around it. But just to be immersed in the herbs and the farm, like an organic herbal farm, it was so magical. I really, really enjoyed it. And then we're going to bring like an Ayurveda component into it. So I'm really excited for that too. That's later this summer.
If somebody wanted to connect with you and find out more about that retreat, how do they do that?
Yeah, you could find me on social media. It's just my first and last name, Hillary, Hillary, Hepp, Hepp. Or you can go to my website, which is Soulfit Wellness. It's SOLFIT wellness.com. And you can find the retreat on there. You can find information about some of our projects. And yeah, I'm pretty active on social media, so you can look me up on there too.
With all of the hoops that you have to jump through and all of the changes that need to be made to bring one of your communities to fruition, what is your target date with your client to have your first project off the ground?
Yeah, so we're hoping for these the micro unit community projects in St. Pete. We're hoping to start construction by the end of the year on those.
Oh,
Yeah, they're in design. We've already submitted to the city on the first one. The second one's going to go in this week, and the third one probably next week. And so they're in the design phase right now. And so we hope to break ground. We already own all 3 properties. So we hope to break ground by this fall for sure.
that's incredible. That's so exciting. Okay, Hillary, what is one book that you recommend all of our listeners read?
Yeah. So can I share 2? I actually
Yes,
want to
please.
share like 2.
Do.
So the first one that came to me, that came through was The Miracle Morning. So if you're
Mhm.
just kind of getting started on your journey, I read this book probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I incorporated the practices that they recommend in the book, and it changed my life. It recommends a lot of the practices in my morning routine that I do now that I've done for the past 5 or 6 years. And it's such a simple, short read. And if you really, start implementing some of these practices, it will change your life. So I think that that's a really, really, and Hal Elrod just has such a good story too. Um, and then the second one I want to share, because I'm grateful I heard about this one. It may be like a little woo-woo for some people, but it's
No,
called The Golden Future by Diana Cooper. Have you heard of that one?
no, I haven't.
Oh, it's really special. The first like half or 2/3 of the book is really cool. The last like third was way above my head. Like I couldn't even process any of it. But she talks a lot about what's happening with this spiritual shift in the earth, and basically how our systems are going to be crumbling, how they're crumbling, and she kind of forecasts what's going to happen. And I really feel like that future can come true because I see it. So I feel like I've felt it so clearly in my whole life. So it's very much in alignment with the way I see the world shifting into. And she just talks a lot. She even puts like dates on it, that's why
Wow.
it's like, how does she know this? Right.
Yeah.
But if it's a really, so if kind of getting out of the matrix is something that interests you, I think that that's a really cool book to get a perspective on what it could look like.
I have to tell you, Hillary, I've asked so many people their book recommendations, and I love that topic. And this is going to be the first one that I buy immediately after recording this because
Yeah.
I really want to read this. Um, and the Miracle Morning is so well known, and not one of my guests has ever mentioned it. So thank you for sharing both of those. But yeah, so is she the author of The Golden Future? Is she a like seer? Is
Yeah,
that
she connects with like star families, like the
okay?
star people. And so she was like downloaded this information.
Wow. And when was the book written? Do you know?
It's fairly new, I think 2023 or maybe beginning of last year. It's pretty new.
Nice, nice.
But she
Yeah.
talks about like how in 2012 it started like a 20-year shift to raise the vibration, and how we're shifting from a 3D to 4D, and how by like 2032 or 2050 we're going to be fully in 5D, and how right now the earth has 8 billion people, but by 2050 there's going to be 2 billion people. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean that we're going to actually like physically lose that many people, or is like the 2 billion people, they're going to go to the 5D and they're not going to be, I don't know. There's like a
Does
lot. It's
does
very
she say
interesting.
what happens? Does she
No,
say that happens?
it's
Oh,
not, no,
interesting.
she just says that's how it's gonna be. But she doesn't say, like, she doesn't go into that detail where she's like specific about, the hows of it.
We could probably talk about this all day too, but
Yeah.
that is a topic that I love talking about. And we've seen that has happened, right? Since 2012. And I'm kind of with you. I think that maybe the 2 billion people, like there's a split in the earth, and this is the higher earth, and then there's still the kind of the regular old earth, what we're used to, and that's what those souls have chosen for right now. And
Yeah.
um, might be a harder path, but that's their path. So,
Yeah,
wow.
I mean,
I love that.
I hope that that's the path. I hope that that's what happens and that we don't actually lose all the people. I don't know. But like what
Yeah,
happened to the Mayans, right? Like maybe that's what happened to them.
yeah.
They just elevated to a different dimension.
I just was talking about that with a friend last week. There's a few communities that just disappeared, and I
Yeah.
like to hope that's what happened to them as well. So,
Yeah,
oh, I have to talk some more about this sometime, Hillary.
I'd
So,
love
my
to.
final question for you. What is one thing that you wish everyone in the world knew?
Yeah, I wish that everyone in the world knew how to connect with their own hearts, that they could learn how to get out of their minds because so many people, especially in our country, right? They're living through their minds and they're living from fear. And if they could just learn how to drop out of their minds and into their hearts, this world would be such a, a more special, better place to be in.
Yeah, yeah. And thank you for sharing the breathwork tool, because I think that's a very good beginning place, and in a place you can always come back to that helps you do that. So thank you so much, Hillary. This has been fascinating, and I'm really looking forward to continuing some of the conversation. Like I said, I am putting the call out there for the developers, investors, and people in government who can help make these changes and help bring this world to fruition. And I look forward to it. And thank you for being one of the leaders in that.
Yeah.
It has
Yeah.
been such a pleasure to meet you and interview you today.
Same. Yeah. I'm happy for anybody that wants to reach out because I'm very much of the mindset, the more we can work together, the bigger impact we can make.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I always like to say, be the light in the dark room, because your light attracts other light. And I think that's exactly what you're doing, Hillary.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeri.